Welcome to Module 4, which is focused on the modern context of education. In this module, we will be covering the replication crisis and the current policy landscape, spanning slides 149 through 185. This module is broken down into two main sections. Section 7, covering the replication crisis and the EdTech gospel, and Section 8, which discusses mastery learning policy across all 50 states. We begin with Section 7, focusing on the replication crisis and the EdTech gospel, specifically on slides 149 through 170. The EdTech gospel is built on promises like technology personalizing learning and AI tutors replicating the, quote, 2 sigma effect. Despite billions invested in EdTech since 2010, the average effect size remains small, at 0.05 to 0.15. This creates an investment paradox. High-evidence interventions, like DI with a 0.59 to 0.97 sigma effect, receive minimal investment. Conversely, low-evidence EdTech, with a 0.05 to 0.15 sigma effect, receives billions. It's been observed that we invest the most in what works the least, and the most heavily invested intervention has the weakest evidence. This is a critical observation from the analysis of education spending patterns. The replication crisis in education means many celebrated interventions fail to replicate, often due to small sample sizes, publication bias, and weak methodology. For example, growth mindset replication attempts are near zero, while direct instruction has been replicated across hundreds of studies over 50 years. EdTech often disappoints because technology without pedagogy is just expensive furniture. Adaptive algorithms cannot replace coherent instructional design. Also, vendor claims rarely match independent evaluation results. We also see the learning management system trap. Districts spend millions focusing on the delivery mechanism, not content quality. This leads to teachers becoming content curators, and poor curriculum delivered digitally remains poor curriculum. The reality of the What Works Clearinghouse is that most programs reviewed by the Institute of Education Sciences show minimal or no effects. DI is consistently rated highly, yet its adoption is limited compared to unproven alternatives. Education has been described as the only field where we systematically ignore what works and invest billions in what does not. This is a crucial finding from education policy analysis. The Reading Wars never truly ended. The whole language versus phonics debate continues, often rebranded as, quote, balanced literacy or 3Qing. Despite the National Reading Panel settling the science in 2000, many schools still use disproven methods. However, the science of reading movement is gaining momentum, with growing recognition that reading must be explicitly taught. States are passing laws requiring phonics-based instruction, and Engelmann's work has been vindicated again. Curriculum truly matters. High-quality curriculum has a larger effect than most interventions. Yet, curriculum decisions are often left to individual teachers. Coherent instruction across grades is rare, which DI programs provide, but require district commitment. The professional development industry spends billions annually on teacher training. However, most PD has a minimal impact on student outcomes, as one-day workshops don't change practice. DI requires sustained training, which districts often resist funding. The obstacle to effective instruction is not lack of pedagogical knowledge. We know what works, but the challenge lies in overcoming political will and institutional inertia, as noted by the 2 Sigma Research Group. Cultural resistance in education manifests in valuing teacher autonomy over instructional effectiveness. Evidence-based practices are often labeled as reductionist or mechanistic, and progressive ideology dominates schools of education. The achievement gap industry focuses heavily on conferences and consulting, often avoiding discussions of curriculum and instruction. While many focus on mindset, DI has been closing gaps effectively for 50 years. DI remains marginalized because it is associated with behaviorism and requires fidelity, which limits teacher autonomy. Furthermore, it challenges the dominant progressive narrative and lacks powerful financial advocacy. The opportunity cost is significant. Millions of students are denied effective instruction, and billions are spent on weakly evidenced interventions. Achievement gaps persist, and children ultimately pay the price for adult ideology. We now transition to Section 8, focusing on mastery learning policy across all 50 states, covering slides 171 through 185. In the policy landscape, few states explicitly mandate mastery learning. Most use standards-based grading or competency-based education, but implementation varies widely, often becoming mastery learning in name only. Competency-based education, in theory, aligns with mastery learning by requiring students to advance upon demonstrating mastery. However, in practice, it often lacks the crucial corrective instruction cycle and uses technology platforms without proven curriculum. By 2026, 38 states will have reading legislation, most requiring evidence-based reading instruction, including phonics. Crucially, few laws specify curriculum, leaving the final choice to individual districts. Over 30 states have third-grade reading laws with retention policies, intending to prevent social promotion. However, retention without providing better instruction does not yield positive results. As a general principle, holding students accountable for learning without providing effective instruction is considered educational malpractice, according to education policy critiques. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, requires evidence-based interventions. Direct instruction qualifies as Tier 1 strong evidence, yet the majority of Title I funds are often spent on lower-tier programs. We observe an implementation gap where policy mandates evidence-based practice, but districts often select programs based on familiarity, not evidence. Vendors market aggressively, and there are few consequences for selecting ineffective programs. Multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, is a framework for providing interventions. It includes Tier 1 universal instruction, Tier 2 targeted interventions, and Tier 3 intensive support for the highest need students. The MTSS problem is that a weak Tier 1 necessitates excessive Tier 2 and 3 interventions. DI as Tier 1 instruction can significantly reduce special education referrals, but districts often resist changing their core instructional approach. As noted by an MTSS analysis, we often add interventions to compensate for poor core instruction. The true solution lies in establishing better core instruction from the start. A key state example is Mississippi. Their 2013 Literacy-Based Promotion Act required evidence-based reading instruction and invested in teacher training. This led to significant improvements in reading scores, known as the Mississippi Miracle. Mississippi's success was due to several factors: mandating phonics-based instruction, providing sustained professional development, placing literacy coaches in every school, and ensuring accountability for implementation, not just outcomes. The cost per proficient metric is crucial. Few districts track the cost per student reaching proficiency, focusing instead on cost per pupil. While direct instruction may cost more upfront, the total cost to proficiency is often lower, due to better, faster results. The political economy of reform shows that textbook adoption is often tied to state standards, not evidence. Large publishers dominate the market, while smaller, evidence-based programs struggle, and political pressure favors innovation over replication. This concludes Module 4. We next move to Module 5, focusing on implementation, the path forward, and a call to action.